What's up, humans? It's the Human Music Podcast. I'm Luke Rain, and this is episode 67. Production is a shit show for everyone. If there's one thing that's sure about being a producer, it's gonna be hard. But how do you push through? Remember that it's okay if some portions of your process feel unproductive. Find lessons in what feels like failure. Keep your expectations realistic and push through the urge to quit. Our song of the week this week is Tesko's Imminent Doom, and links are down there below for you. You can hear it playing behind me now. Also, please support our sponsors, their dope producer resources. Links are down below. First, Dojo TV, where you can get free producer live stream classes from the Producer Dojo Senseis. The weekly download, where you can learn from Il Gates and his private weekly group lessons and get access to over 230 more episodes in the archive for just $20 a month. And guest practices, where you can learn from Seth Drake at the Approach Institute. He is the best engineer we know, and over there, your first class is free. Hit all those links down below. Without further ado, let's get right on into the episode.
Hello, people of Earth. This is Tesko with Rip Kenny and Trap Jesus, and you're listening to the Human Music Podcast. Woo!
Human Music Podcast. I like it. Yo, what's up, humans? Welcome back to the Human Music Podcast. I'm Luke Rain, here with the one and only Rip Kenny. Woo. And the one and only Tesko. What's up, buddies?
Hey. Bam, bam, bam. What's good?
Wah, wah, wah. Rave horns.
You got like that extra smooth radio DJ voice going today, Luke. I like it.
Like I think it's a combination of being underslept and a little gravelly, and finally putting this microphone right in front of my face.
Dude, I am underslept significantly as well. I ended up going to bed at like 8 a.m.
Holy shit!
And I have a story that goes along with why that was 8 a.m. So it revolves around this new song that I'm working on, and I actually wanted to bring this up as a story on the podcast because it's a good reminder for everyone out there that no matter what stage you're at, it can always be difficult. Sometimes you're gonna have writing sessions that feel like shit, and you think it's not gonna happen, but you just gotta stick with it. So this song has actually been probably the hardest one to write that I can remember of recent. The first writing session, I had a guitar riff to start with, and I started working on it at 9:30 in the morning, and I worked on it all day, all night until it was 2 in the morning, and I'd started at 9:30, and I still didn't feel like I just didn't have a song there. I didn't have what I wanted. And if you listen to this podcast, you know that if I don't have a rough draft of a song through the first session, it's just scrap it. But the thing is though, when I have a writing session, I always get a rough draft of something by the end. Over the past 3 or 4 years, I can't say that there's a session in which I didn't end with something, something to wake up the next morning and listen to and be like, is this worth continuing, right? And I was at that point where I just still had the riff and some ideas for some drops-ish and some stuff around it, and an idea for vocals that I hadn't laid down yet because my voice wasn't feeling too good. And I was just burnt out, and it was 2:30 in the morning. And the promise that I make to myself every time I set aside a whole day for music is there's a rough draft there when I'm done. And there wasn't. And I literally threw in the towel. I was like, you know what? Over the many years that I can remember writing music for this project, I literally can't remember a time where I didn't finish a rough draft. And, it's going to happen eventually, right? So I'm just going to call it. And pulled up YouTube my suggested videos was from Eliminate. It was like an audio combat thing. If you guys are familiar, hilarious. If for all the listeners out there, if you haven't seen this series from Eliminate, it's both informative and hilarious. Like, he has a very like quick and like effective way of producing, and this audio combat thing is you like have 2 hours to finish a song, right? So you just got to move quickly and finish it. So it is informative to watch. I would highly recommend it if you haven't. But a bunch of people also take 2 hours and make a song and submit, and then he picks his favorite as well as makes a song. And one of the submissions, I was watching this 15-minute video. It's like 13 minutes in, and one of the submissions was so good. Just like I loved the way that it just rolled. And it was only like a 20-second clip of this dude's song, and it was like the way it rolled into the drop and then just had the sickest sound, and the groove was just right. And it was like, I was just grabbed by it. I was like, this is so sick. And then literally I was like, I don't even care if the song sucks. After watching that video, I just like want to work on music again. So I opened the song back up, and I ended up staying up for another 4 or 5 hours that night, which wasn't last night, and ended up with a full rough draft of a song. I knew I still needed vocals, and there's some other stuff to figure out, but I had like a full rough draft. So fast forward to yesterday, after, I was gone for the weekend, camping, backpacking. I was feeling inspired. I was like, I need to tackle the rest of this song. So I woke up, fixed a couple things in the song, recorded vocals for it. And well, side note, the vocal recording of this one too, like I was just not feeling my voice on this. Like, it took me like 5 hours just to record vocals. And it's not even like a verse, pre-chorus, chorus. Like, it's literally like a very simple like song structure. I just didn't know where the stuff was going to go. And I was just not liking how it was sounding. And that lasted basically until like 3:30 in the morning last night. Cause I was like, okay, I had enough of a song to be like, okay, I had a rough draft. And then I was like, okay, this session, I need to finish a full draft that I like, or this song's not going to happen. And I really, really liked parts of it, but like, it just wasn't coming together. And I was like starting to hate it. And it was like 3:30 in the morning. And I was like, God, I've been beating my head against the wall, and I still don't have an arrangement that I like. It just doesn't really make sense from like just an overall flow perspective. And I just, I was like, you know what? That's all right. I'm just going to take a little break here. Maybe I'll go to bed. Maybe I won't. I just sat down on the couch and closed my eyes for 10 minutes. And over that 10 minutes, I literally was like, I could do this. That might work. I should do this. And just like stepping away from the computer. And then I came back, and over that next 4.5 hours until 8 in the morning, like it just all came together really quickly. So in a total of probably 40 hours of working on this song already, like 8 of them from the hours of 3 to 7 a.m. were like the breadwinning hours of making that music. And both of those came directly after wanting to quit, wanting to just completely throw in the towel. And now the song that I have today, really, really like. I'm really, really happy that I stuck with it. But in writing sessions before, I've been close to being like, this song's not going to happen, and then something clicks and does. This was definitely, I literally did quit, full on quit. Like, this song's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then got back into it the first time, and then the last night I was like, well, come this far, I might as well just not admit defeat. Let me just take a little break, and that was all I needed. So the nugget in this story is that no matter how far along you are in your production journey, like, you just have to remember that like, it's never easy. You will want to quit. Every song that I've written, there's been hours of that time spent just slogging through stuff that sucks and not finding the thing that I like, and working on something for 2 hours and finally like, wow, okay, everything that I've done for the past 2 hours sucks. I actually need to work on a different section of this song because this is terrible. This is not working. None of this is working. And like, you just keep moving. You just keep doing stuff. Maybe take a little break if you need. But just know that it's going to be hard. It's okay to feel like the song sucks. It's okay to have big periods of time in that writing session that are unproductive or don't yield the type of stuff that you want to write. If you keep with it, it will come together. So I felt like that was worth sharing because I'm sure you guys and everyone out there that listens to this podcast has had those moments, and just a little bit of reassurance that it happens to me. I'm sure it happens to you guys, it happens to everyone. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Let's keep moving.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, man, because there definitely is a pressure at the beginning to like feel like you have to come with this fully formed idea. And while those sessions are great, you know, the truth of the matter is like you don't usually have that, especially if you're showing up every day and you're trying to make something happen. I think what helped me get out of that personally, and you guys can probably relate to this as well, is having gone through the process enough times, you have enough reference points when you look back to be like, oh, the coolest shit of most of these songs, I wasn't even aware that I was capable of doing this, or that this was even going to end up in the song, or that I even had this sample or whatever. And it's kind of those magic moments at hour 4, hour 8, hour, 13, hour 20, which is just like the little things that really make that track special start to present themselves. Also, like, taking some time away, like you said, when you come back to it, your mind state is different. You're going to be approaching the problem. It basically is problem solving, right? Even though music isn't a problem, right? You're problem solving on the spot. You're going to be in a different mind state to like approach that challenge that's in front of you and find ways to make that happen, right? Yeah, man, I think we've just gone through the process enough times and have enough insight into like how the song comes together in the later stages. It takes a lot of pressure when you're starting stuff, because you know that initial idea does not really need to be that amazing, but it should be like foundationally strong. You should be able to grow from there. It should, there should be a solid baseline to it. There should be a strong motif that's presented, that evolves, so on. But everything else is like, you're going to discover those like truly special moments. Like chord progressions too. They're not trademarkable or anything like that. It's because it's really the top line that you put over it that makes the song and all the other like cool sounds and textures and whatnot. So yeah, man, I definitely empathize with where you're coming from when you talk about that. And I definitely still scratch songs all the time that I thought would be ones that I would release and so on and so forth. But yeah, again, like when I look back, the truly special ones are the ones that like I just put time into, obviously had a strong foundation, but it's kind of these like little special moments over the course of working on it that made the song what it is. That those are the moments when I show people the music where they're like, whoa, that's fucking sick. And that wasn't in the first 15 hours of the song while I was working on it. Absolutely. I had to just maintain hope that it would come.
Dude, absolutely. That's like so spot on. Like some of my favorite parts of music that I've written were not something that I thought of, something that just happened, or like something that like you're sound designing and all of a sudden you tweak some knob and you're like, what the fuck? I did not know that would happen. And something cool comes out of it. And then you have a song that's way better than you could have dreamed up because you stuck with it. You tried different stuff. And it's funny because you were talking about like the foundation doesn't have to be that strong. It's funny sometimes when the basis of your song doesn't have to be incredible when it starts, right? Like you just have to have like a solid foundation. I found it's funny to think like some of the times I start with like a more basic thing, it's easier to write the song than when I have something that I start with like a chord progression or a guitar riff that I love. then that song can actually be much harder to write because I'm like, I love this first thing so much. Like everything after it has to be perfect too. And then you just deliberate and never get to that thing that's like, or it takes a while to get to something that you're happy with, because that starting point, you're like, oh, I gotta make this perfect because I really, really liked this thing and I don't want to ruin this starting point for myself. It can happen. You can get stuck both ways, I guess is what I'm saying.
It's funny that you say that, because that's kind of exactly what I was thinking when we were, when you were talking about that earlier and talking about how, sometimes it's okay. It's dope when you start with that crazy cool idea that's all formed in your head, but other times it's better to just, roll with it. Then thinking back, I've had so many times where I was like, ooh, this cool idea. It's so important. It's in my head. And then I'll jump in the DAW and it'll just like fall flatter and flatter the more I work on it, because it never sounds like it did in my head. It's like, oh, it's got to be this horn line. And then you're scrolling through horn samples and none of them sound at all like what I was thinking. And, the articulation is wrong because it's mid. And then, and then it's just like a slog to try and turn this head idea into a DAW idea. Whereas when I just go in like, I'm feeling good, let's just make some shit happen. Ooh, this is a cool thing. And then just like you're saying, run with those happy accidents and just keep running down the line of, oh, and now this. Okay, cool. And now this. There's not that vision that you have to compare against and
Totally.
feel like the production you're making isn't good enough compared to it. If you know what I mean?
100%.
I'm curious, Luke, with your like draft kind of strategy where you like you have these sessions where you like draft up multiple tunes at a time and then you kind of choose, which ones you're going to work on from there. What's your kind of process? Obviously, the ones that got that special thing that's unexplainable or whatever, you work on those. But like, what's your like, give the people a little more insight into like, what's your hit rate, for example, like how many initial drafts make it to the next stage where they get touched up and made into a song? Like how much do you spend on each draft? What's that process like? How do you move songs through that funnel?
Man, so I feel like my answer is currently undergoing a huge overhaul in my life. Like I had this big batch of songs and for months, through the pandemic, I've been working just like you're talking, where I would like just start with an idea and bang it out and then, send it to a homie to get some feedback on. And then I would, do the same with another idea. And then I'd have this big batch of ideas. But right now I've realized that some of those songs I was initially excited about because, I got this idea out quickly. I'm realizing that, a lot of like, some of the sounds I use, grab this sound and then just run with it. And now I'm realizing some of the foundational sounds of some of these tracks just really aren't working. And like, I'm kind of weighing which of them I feel like diving back into and doing a bunch of sound replacement and which of them don't feel worthwhile. So currently like that whole batch of tracks, I'm just letting cool on ice right now. I'm like, I'm not listening to them. I'm not opening up the sessions. I'm just going to give it a few weeks and let them all just sit there and then come back with like completely fresh ears and no emotional attachment to the work I put in on them. Because you know how that can go, like, you can feel like, well, I just put 40 hours into it. It must be important and valuable. And that can, like, skew how you listen to it. Whereas, like, you wait a couple of months and you find some random, this MP3 in the playlist that you left. And then you go, oh, yeah, this thing, I forgot about this. Is it good? And objectively just either you're jamming to it and you want to work on it, or you're like, okay, well, that was a good lesson. I tried. I learned some shit. I can take some life lessons forward, but I think I'm going to let this one go or piece it off for parts or whatever. But yeah, now,
if it makes you feel any better, sound selection is probably one of, if not the most time intensive. Like it's what I spend the most time doing, like figuring out what the right sound for each spot is.
And I think, I'm really starting to understand your perspective on why, because and I'm my goal now is to spend a lot more time on that, because replacing sounds is a tedious process, and if the song is good enough, the actual songwriting part of it is good enough, it can be absolutely worth it to spend time. It's like, oh man, this is jamming, but I don't like that hi-hat, or this is fucking great, but I think that subline, let me audition some other patches. But when it's something where you like started with a patch and then you flattened it and then you chopped it a bunch of ways and then you put effects on it and then you flattened it again, and then you're like, well,
yeah,
I don't know if this is worth that like 7 hours it's going to take to go all the way back to the beginning, find a hopefully way better patch, and then redo all of those mud pies and editing sessions again. It's just like, maybe I just got to chalk this one up as a life lesson and keep moving, man.
Yeah, like, do you flatten it and like pitch it down and like try and beef it up? Like I know the pain there.
Been there, man.
So many times it was like, this sound should be good, but there's some fundamental things wrong with it, and I am way too deep to go back and fix it. Now, it's really tough to go, especially since like a lot, like if you started the song with that, you picked other sounds based on that, right? And if you replace that sound, these other sounds probably don't work with it anymore.
Right.
And not only that, I think the biggest problem is the emotional investment most people have in that track. Like, it's so painful to think that, the last 8 hours were for nothing, but like, think about it as like these 8 hours that I quote unquote wasted today. I learned the one gold nugget. Even if I don't realize I learned it, I learned the one gold nugget that is going to keep developing over the course of the next year. And I might have picked up something in that session that, blossoms into something that's very fundamental to who I am as an artist, what my music sounds like, yada, yada, yada.
I love that, man. I think that's a real important perspective to keep, especially when people are coming up. And, remember, like, it's not you wasted this 8 hours. It's that 8 hours is going towards your 10,000. Like, you got to show up a bunch, and a bunch of what you show up to do won't get released. And that's okay. Just take a deep breath. It's going to be fine. Figure out, what lesson can I learn from this particular, what feels like a waste of time, so that it wasn't one.
Yeah, and even if you don't actually have like a sound or a golden nugget from that song that you were working on, that is like, you're like, yeah, at least I can bank on that. Like, these 8 hours weren't wasted because I did that one thing. Even if you don't have one of those moments, you have nothing in that song that you like. If you're trying to really do this, like we've talked about on this podcast before, like if you see yourself as someone that is going to, take this and run with it for a long time and try and make, some sort of career or even just like try and take your music to the next level consistently, like you have to think of yourself as a professional, and the professional doesn't look back on all the days that they didn't get it right. They just know that that's part of the process, right? And so for me, like I just try and think of it like I'm a professional. I show up and I'm going to put the time in, and if this song didn't work out, I'm still going to make the whole song. And, maybe I won't mix it down and master it, but I'm still going to make the whole song enough so that I can judge it for what it's worth, and understand that you have to make a lot of songs to get the ones that are truly worth their weight in gold. It just doesn't happen every time. And so, like, just chalk that up to another one that you can, say adds to your percentage chance that the next one is great. Like,
yeah,
just sharpening your swords all the time just leads to making better music. You just instinctually train good moves over time, and it's not something you can just like force into yourself.
Yeah, you instinctually train good moves over time.
You sharpen into yourself.
Facts. Yeah, you integrate these parts into your workflow so that they're second nature, so that you can still fuck it up 80% of the time. That's like I added, like, and it shouldn't come that easy. When you hear of all these great artists, like top of the top, and they talk about writing so many shitty songs, 10 shitty songs per song that makes it on the album. Why should it come easy to you? It doesn't come easy to Kanye. It doesn't come easy to Drake. It doesn't come easy to Skrillex. It doesn't come easy to whoever is in the top of whatever domain you're competing in, whatever, genre you're putting music out in. I mean, technically that's who you're competing against. And if it's not coming to them, if golden ideas aren't falling out of the sky, it's not going to come for you too. You literally, it seems like so obvious, but I remember being in a phase where I was constantly looking for these golden answers. And it's like, man, seeing how many albums I loved and how many artists I love who have admitted that album or those singles that those artists put out were just like duct taped together and like just absolute messes by the time the actual projects got released, showed me that this really is a game of just who wants it more and who's like able to stitch together the best, I don't know how to put it into words exactly, but like I just always think back at this one meme of Homer Simpson and like Marge is looking at him and he's like all his skin's like super tight and shit, and then in the next frame you like get the back view and he's got all those like clamps and shit like pulling back all his fat, and I'm like, that is what a song is. It is a mess of a project file with all sorts of irreversible mistakes and compromises and all this stuff you're going to have to make by the end of the song. And the sooner you can accept that, the more of those magical moments you'll get. And also the less pressure you'll put on yourself to like keep things too perfect and clean and pretty and whatever. Like at the end of the day, it really comes down to how good does it sound, and knowing that it's not going to come easy, knowing that you have to do all of this exploration. Like, don't get discouraged if it's not coming right away. Like, spend an ample amount of time like with layering and trying out different leads and layers and like all of that stuff. Like, yeah, man, I don't know. Like it just, the special moments truly come over time. I don't know how else to like put that into words. And like, I want to just yell that from the top of my lungs to emphasize it to the listeners. Cause I know, my speech is at a fairly consistent tone, but I cannot emphasize how important that point is, man. Like, don't lose hope early on. The song's not going to write itself. Just keep putting in work and it will present itself to you. That's key.
Yeah. No, what you said, like, it should be simple. Like, it should be obvious that every song is not going to be a hit, but still you feel bad about yourself when it's not.
Yeah.
And like we've had this conversation on the show before, like your favorite artist, like my favorite artist out of, 5 to 10 albums, there's probably only one that I really love. And that is on a released music standpoint. Like, are you kidding me? That is all stuff that they were like, yeah, this is top quality. We're going to release this. And it's still only like a fraction of that I really love. So then you dive into like how many songs they probably made to make all of those songs that then you only like 10% of, like, and you're feeling bad about this one song, but like it should be obvious. But I still fall into that trap. I'm sure you guys do too, where like you're so hard on yourself when, like, especially like when you say you've been writing a lot of good music lately and then you make one that like at the, you feel like it should be good, but it's just not. Then you're like, what is wrong with me? Like why do we do that to ourselves? Like it like you said, it should be obvious that that's okay, but it's not. And that's why like I really wanted to like talk about this topic today, because it's like exactly like your point where it should be obvious. Like that is really the key here. Like it should be obvious that that's okay, but it's not. And that's why we need to talk about it. So all you fellow producers out there, when you're feeling bad about the song that you're working on, know that it's okay to feel bad about this one. You just got to keep making more. And there's gonna be songs in your future that you couldn't imagine you had the capability of writing. But that only happens if you continue to be okay with this song sucking and working on the next one next time.
Mm-hmm. Amen. There was basketball player that's like gaining a lot of traction. Giannis, I think his name is. I might be butchering that a bit, but
I'm a smiling nod. I know nothing about basketball anymore, man.
Yeah, I haven't kept up, but I've been seeing this dude go around, you know, and some friends telling me about him, and he's just a very fascinating figure. He's playing in like, you know, 36, 38 point games from what I'm hearing. Like the man's
NBA?
just a beast. Yeah. And
What team does he play for?
I don't even know that much.
I'm gonna
bro,
pretend like I'm a basketball. We're talking about skeet ball, right?
The Miami
now, right?
ball shooters.
Nice.
But I've been seeing his videos, like interviews and stuff popping up on Instagram. Like I saw one last night actually after recently talking to a friend about it and hearing his name a bunch. And like I really love the man's perspective because they ask him like, how does he stay so hungry and competitive now that he's made it? And he just always talks about how like he forgets everything that he's accomplished thus far when he is in the zone, when he's playing the current game. And he gets in that mentality of, I ain't shit yet. And I think that it's like almost like a spiritual experience. I know that sounds very like hippie woo woo, but for me, the whole like, you put all of this work into this one thing. I kind of think of him, all these games that he's won, right? Not that I'm comparing myself to an NBA player, but I think of all these games he's won, right? I compare that to all these songs I've written, all these songs that I was so attached to that I thought, man, this is like this. I'm going to put this out. This is going to be crazy. People are going to love this, blah, 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 blah. I'm sure he's had thoughts too, where it's like, man, I won this title. I won this title. I won this title. That means I'm somewhere here in the social standing of the NBA. I'm relative to these players. I'm standing here. That whole like attachment that comes from, you know, in his case, what titles he's gotten, or in our case as producers, I've gotten this many plays, or this person supported my latest track, or this person this person that, or I achieved this, I did that, they called me this. All of these like labels that you hold on to and these songs that you write that you get overly attached to hold you back. And I really love music for the fact that, again, you have that kind of spiritual experience of like, you invest all your time into this track for the time being, and then it's not wiped away per se, but then it's just like, all right, now this is what it is. Now you're starting from square one over again for the next one. Now do it again. Now treat this one like your baby. Now nurture it, grow it, develop it, see what this one turns into. And it might be horrible. It might shoot down your confidence, absolutely. But yeah, it just like trains you not to get too attached, you know? And I think about in my past how much I held myself back. And I think about students, you know, who have a hard time getting this through to where they're overly attached to this current song they're working on because maybe they learned this cool new sound design technique or this or that. And, you know, to them, they have this tunnel vision and it's sounding super cool. But in the grand scheme of things, you're not aiming for this one drop that sounds cool. I mean, a lot of people, you know, that we work with, that we teach, they're not aiming to just make one song that's cool and they release it on this label and whatever, and everybody approves of their sound design and gives them a pat on the back. Like, if you're trying to make this a career, you got to like stop like setting your goals here and start viewing as the goalpost, you know, where it actually is, which is so much higher than where people are aiming. And if you're getting emotionally invested into this track, you're kind of projecting this idea that like, I'm okay with like collecting crumbs in a sense. Like, it could be so much better, but like, fuck that. I watched the serum tutorial today and I feel good about this one new thing I did, even though it's not really where I want to be, you know? Like, I don't know if I'm getting my point across clearly here, but it's like that whole idea of just like let go and start the new one and realize you're going to make better. Like, don't get too attached.
I feel like what it's coming down to, if I were to boil it down, would be to like keep that beginner mindset, that white belt mindset. Like, don't get caught up in where you're supposed to be. Don't get caught up in where you were yesterday and why am I not as good as that today or whatever. Just like focus on what you're focused on. Be here for this tune until you're done with this tune, and then make a different tune and let like have that long view, you know, have that have that long view of like, this is an entire career. I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna keep doing this. If I'm not famous by tomorrow, I'm not quitting. So why am I putting so much on this song as if like this moment were some sort of make it or break it moment in my life?
Yeah. And
Amen.
like, you got to remember that like you're probably doing this because at some point or another you were like, this is really fun. And I have to constantly remind myself to just let that guide me rather than my own expectations of myself or my music or aspirations. It's like, I do this because it's fun. I really do. And yeah, like you said, Tesko, not every song is a baby that you have to nurture and grow to full adult level. It's, you know, you gotta let go of some. But like you said, you have a lot of songs that you started and you thought were great and you thought were gonna be the shit, and then never put. Actually, I have one in mind that you made that I know you haven't put out yet that you need to put out. So there's
the way I see these things is like, keep building up those songs. Just because the bar keeps raising doesn't mean that you got to throw away all these songs. But the way I see it is like 8 months ago, what I thought was my hottest shit is now somewhere here towards the bottom. And every month or so, I've written at least one track that keeps setting the bar higher, 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 higher. To me, this is like a safety net for when I start releasing, to me, in my opinion, the quality has increased with that one track every month, right? To the listeners, from their perspective, they might have different favorites than I do. So first off, that's working in your favor. But it's just like, if you're climbing up the tree of success and you fall all the way down, it's like you're going to hit a lot of branches on your way down that will kind of cushion the fall. Those branches being the song you thought was sick 8 months ago and 7 months ago and 6 months ago that are now overshadowed by the recent shit you did that is probably, miles ahead of
Dude, you sent me a song like 2 years ago that you still haven't put out that I don't know why it's popping into my head now, but it was like a hip hop beat, and then all of a sudden it went into like hybrid trap, and it was really sick. And I don't know. Yeah, you should put that one out. I don't know what that one is. I liked it, and it's state that you showed me.
Okay.
Put that one out. I really liked that one.
See, y'all, I go through the same stuff, man, and it will come out certainly at some point. But like one thing to add to that too, like we talked about this before, but that whole like mental masturbation mindset of just like getting yourself off on how sick your ideas are and how your theories about how you're going to sound design and your theories about how you're going to mix and all your theoretical BS, everything that isn't actually sitting down in front of a DAW and producing something exportable that people can listen to, all of that like mental, like gears turning and imaginative thinking and all of that stuff is like really kind of a growth killer. And it's a blessing and a curse because I think it comes with that creative inclination to like make music and all that stuff. So you also start imagining all this other stuff. But one of the most important things I've learned, man, how many, I think we talked about this before, but how many concept albums and ideas and stuff I had and how sick they were all going to be. They would have all changed the world. I'm telling you right now, if any of them came out, but they didn't because I was going in trying to shoehorn these ideas into reality instead of just showing up every day, seeing what is the best stuff that I can create and then packaging that together, letting that be the album, letting the songs come out as they are and not trying to like overcomplicate the ideas. It's like the whole like shoot for the moon and if you miss you'll still like land among the stars. That's like instead of just grabbing like a rocket that will get you to the moon at a reasonable time, you start like building up this like huge fucking 18-cylinder booster thing and you just like boom, just miss the moon. You just, once you finally get that thing built, you just zoom way past it and now you're in some other galaxy.
I think you you probably just over engineered it, and it's not even gonna light when you have it on the launch pad. Like,
Yeah,
it's just
that's
not
true
even
too.
like it's just not even gonna go, or it's gonna just blow up.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was hearing you talk about the, having the idea for the concept album before you have the songs for it, it's just like such one of those classic, cart before the horse, count your chickens before they hatch type of moments, right? Where you're like, oh yeah, man, I'm gonna have so many chickens, it's gonna be awesome. And you realize like, oh, I bought these eggs from the store. They're fucking unfertilized. They're like none of these are gonna hatch. I had no idea. I don't know how do chickens happen? I should probably Google that, right? Like I've definitely done that too, where I had this big idea for this. Oh, it's gonna be the concept, and now I got to shoehorn some ideas into it, and like I'm more concerned with how it fits the concept and kind of blow by the general quality it needs to be to even hit that bar that I want to hit of quality. And kind of looking back, it's like, oh, this is gonna be such a sick concept EP. It's like got all these like Star Wars themes, and wow, it's gonna be sick. And then like looking back, it's like, man, 75% of these 4 songs are just straight whack. Like it's a decent, cool little idea that I started with, and then I tried to shoehorn this other thing into it, and then I piled a few more things on there, and it just turned out like crap. And that's okay. It's a good lesson to learn, but it's much easier to focus on a song. And we were talking a bit about this on the Finishing Music episode a while back. Like, focus on the songs. Songs are hard enough to make really well. Focus on making them. And then once you've got a bunch of good songs, then, put together the album any way you like. Or if you start to see a concept, oh, wow, these 5 songs really feel like each other, and they're all this type of moody, rainy day music. But I'd like a few more to choose from. So I'll write a bunch more rainy day music and see if any of those ones make the cut of the rainy day EP, right? As opposed to, okay, it's all got to be rainy day music from here on out. And then you find out 6 months down the line that, man, I should probably be making happy music. All my sad music is shit.
Been there too.
Yeah, man. It's been interesting, like, hearing you guys talk about, the ways we get tripped up and stuff, because definitely like lately I've been getting a lot tripped up, and part of it has been what we were talking about earlier about like sample selection. Like I'll start making, and I'll have a little idea and start making a beat, and just like, an hour in, just be like, man, I fucking hate all these sounds. I don't even want to use any of them. I'm gonna go do some video editing or something easy that I can just fucking turn off my brain and get done off my to-do list. And like you say, it's important to push through when you got the idea, but I don't know. Sometimes I've been in that situation where I'm like, nah, just keep pushing. It's gonna be okay. I'm gonna get there. And other times I just feel like, you know what? I feel like I'm starting on such a shaky foundation. If I spend like 20 more hours on this, I will be mad that I wasted that time, when I know right now that it's already like this idea just doesn't work. And I think I got to be okay with that. And, those times make me think, okay, you know what? Like, let me spend more time on preparation. Let me if I want to write, I had an idea if I want to write in this key, or if I want to write at this BPM, or I want to write using this type of instrument, like really spend my time finding the samples and the patches and writing a bunch of loops, writing a bunch of chord progressions, doing all the batching tasks we talk about, where we, get a bunch of one thing done. And then you've got a lot to choose from. And then you can see, wow, I just laid down like 100 different ideas in the last week. Now let me sit down to write with a whole bunch of stuff I can just grab that I've already like quality tested, as opposed to having to break my flow to like dig through 1,000 horn samples or horn patches that all suck.
Yeah, I feel that, man. Yeah, so, to everybody listening, like, definitely just keep pushing yourself, and don't get too discouraged too early on, because the coolest shit has yet to come, like, don't get too attached to these initial ideas that you're laying down. Don't get too attached to the key. Don't get too attached to the tempo. Don't get too attached to the nothing, like all of these things, like it might be 5% of what you currently laid down, that becomes the centerpiece for the song at the end of it by the time you go through that full process and, you know, fully hash out, develop these ideas, so on. So, excuse me. So, you know, all of that's normal. I've definitely gone through that. And like at the end of the day, all these huge artists that you're looking up to, the only thing that's separating them from you is that they found ways to push through the trenches even when it was painful. You know, like I saw Subtronic's Instagram story or something like that, where he was showing for this one tune that he was trying to put out and like finalize and mix master, whatever. He had to sidechain and volume automate out his basses out of the way to get the loudness that he wanted. And he was showing how he had to do like all this like weird automation to basically duct tape everything together in the final version of the track so that it hit right, so that he could get the loudness he want. All that comes with creative
so he
problem
could get
solving.
positive number lefts.
Exactly. And so, you know, like that is something that you would not typically be told to do in a tutorial. Or if you watch Pensato's place, he would literally spank you if you ever suggested that. But you have to find these solutions for yourself and find a way to make it work to get to that level. It's a shit show for everybody, you know. It's like that's just what it is, and that's what you signed up for. If you like making tunes, and you know, just keep pushing through.
Yeah, it's a shit show for everyone. That's what the episode is called.
Production is a shit show for everybody. Amen to that.
I think
So,
that's a nice brown ribbon on that.
Put on your tall boots and start wading through the shit. Producer
Skirt, eat some dirt. That's what I always say.
Skirt, eat some dirt.
Been saying that for years.
Well, I think that feels like a pretty good episode, guys. What y'all think?
Yeah,
like you said, brown. There's a brown bow on it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
all right. I think with that,
peace humans,
and peace among worlds.
Yep, peace among the world. You know what I'm saying? Oh.
Yes, sir. Yeah, daddy. I know what you're saying.
All right, humans, thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure to follow at the Human Music Podcast everywhere but Twitter, where we're at Human Music Pod. You can find us over at thehumanmusicpodcast.com. And make sure to smash that subscribe, the like, leave a comment on YouTube, leave a rating and review on iTunes, and make sure to come back with us next week when we're talking about getting back out there into the real world after the pandemic and what that's going to be like for producers that have been in our bedrooms for however long. Make sure you support our sponsors, Dojo TV, where you can get free producer live stream classes from the Producer Dojo Senseis, the weekly download where you can learn from Ill Gates in his private weekly group lessons and get access to over 230 more episodes in the archive for just $20 a month, and guest practices where you can learn from Seth Drake at the Approach Institute, the best engineer we know, and your first class over there is free. Song of the week is playing behind me, Tesko's Imminent Doom. Links are down there for that too. Please go support. See y'all back here next week, humans. Peace and peace among worlds. I like it.